you, Angela. And going now to Rushanara, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I want to pursue some of the points that Angela's raised, and in particular the role of the City of London and fossil fuel financing. The City of London was identified last year in our report on money laundering, for instance, as having £90 billion worth of dirty money laundered through the City of London. We also know some of the evidence that's come to us has shown that about 15% of financing, global financing of CO2 emissions is happening through the City of London, even though within the UK it's about 1%. So there's a lot riding on what the bank and the regulators do in the UK. And Sarah, you've talked about the stress test, but I just wanted to get more on a better sense of what you're doing to bear down on those companies, such as Barclays, for instance, who are said to have spent $85 billion of money investing in dirty energy, coal and other towards fossil fuels. HSBC, 57 billion, and a number of others. What's happened in recent years? This has been happening, it's been going in the wrong direction since the Paris Agreement back in 2015. What's been done to bear down on those numbers? Can you give us some facts on what's happened? Or is it just constantly increasing, as we've seen from some of the evidence since 2015?
So what we've done is set out expectations on all of those firms that they should have climate change as climate change in their business as usual risk management frameworks. It should be part of governance discussed at board level in order to ensure there is a strategy for delivering that risk appetite.
Can I just pursue this point about the numbers?
Of course.
So, you know, there are different numbers being floated. Another figure that the Greenpeace report suggested in 2019, a more recent one, suggests that 4 UK banks have collectively given the coal industry life support by pumping in almost 25 billion since the 2015 Paris Agreement. Do you know if that's continuing, or what's been done about reversing that trend in actual numbers, could you say? Because I think the problem is, and anyone listening and watching the responses will feel that there isn't clarity around the numbers. And I think we need to know whether any impact is taking place in reducing that level of investment in fossil fuels. So Helen can come in a bit as well. Thank you.
So I come back to the transition that we need to make to net zero is one that we need to make over many years. And fossil fuels are going to be an important part of our energy mix for a long time. So we can't pull the plug out. I mean, we've had the parts of the global economy on lockdown, and subsequent to which carbon emissions are going to fall by 8%, it is estimated. And the economic cost of achieving that has been horrendous, as this committee knows well. So I think what we have to be clear about is that we need a strategy, a multi-year transition that gets us from where we are to net zero. And I think that's what we are trying to get the firms to do. And I think it's very hard, Rushanara, to kind of say this investment is going down, because I come back to investing in Shell could be part of the solution. Investing in BP could be part of the solution. So we have to stretch our horizons and think not just about what's happening today, but what's going to happen in the future.
Sure. I mean, I just think that we do need some clarity on this, because otherwise, as Angela has already mentioned, we could find that things aren't moving as fast as, and the transitions.
I understand.
So just on this point about in 2020 January, the Prime Minister announced the government would scrap foreign aid for coal mining abroad. And should our government now look at regulators, and set similar expectations for banks when it comes to co-financing? You're suggesting that we can't do that, essentially, in your previous remark. So, are you saying that we should, we need different rules for the UK financing sector, and they should carry on financing coal?
So I think that what the UK financial system needs to do is steward the real economy to net zero. That is what the UK financial system needs to do.
The point is, we're not doing that. Since the Paris Agreement, since 2015, we're going into the opposite direction, and that's why it's quite unsatisfactory. I appreciate the new regimes coming in, and that's helpful. But it does seem like there's a sort of degree of the pace is not rapid enough, and there seems to be mixed messages about what you're saying.
So this is a multi-year transition. It's going to take a long time to get the economy from a position where carbon emissions have done nothing but rise to one where they are falling, and they will get to net zero by 2050. The financial system's got a hugely important part to play in that. Since we've put expectations on them in April 19, I have seen them take these issues seriously. They're developing the data, developing the methodologies, working out what their strategy needs to be. But this is like a super tanker. You can't shift it quickly. It's going to take a number of years to get there. I think our stress test will give us the best visibility of how we are doing on that.
Okay, well, Sheldon, can I just turn to you? What can the FCA do to speed up on and get some rapid action on some of this? And also, and it may be for others as well. Also, there was a piece recently, a couple of pieces in the FT and the Guardian about the asset management companies. 3 asset management companies combined oversee £300 billion worth of fossil fuel investment. Now, some of these companies are US companies with London offices, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and so on. What can we do to try and tackle the investment that goes into the deforestation and damage to the Amazon, which provides 20% of oxygen for the world? What can the FCA and the Bank of England do, given the leadership role the Bank of England has taken, being among the first in the world? It's really encouraging, but what can we do to influence other regulators and our partners?
Okay, a number of questions there, Rushanara.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first point here is that our role is not to direct where capital goes. So people are free to invest their money where they seek to do so. So I think that's the first point. If we wish to have changes to that, that's a matter for government. So I just want to be clear on that, because otherwise I won't be clear with you. That said, what we can absolutely do is ensure that this concept of stewardship, where asset managers are thinking about how they invest, how they use what you've described there, those significant investment in fossil fuel companies. How can we get active stewardship working, remove the barriers to active stewardship, so that actually, if asset managers are predisposed, and many of them have publicly said that they are predisposed to do this, that they can use that power through voting, through other mechanisms, to put pressure on those firms to be the brown companies of today and the green companies of tomorrow. And I think that goes back to Sarah's point around how do all of these bits of the jigsaw puzzle work together to drive the change in this supertanker. And I think we are working with the FRC, with the TPR, DWP, etc., to try and unlock some of these barriers in relation to active stewardship, which should encourage a greater pressure, in a sense, on some of these firms to in a sense, move forward.
So for all three of you, I have one final question, which is there a role for further legislation, regulation from government to direct where money is invested and the stewardship point for those who are not voluntarily doing the right thing? What are your views on that? Where might be the scope and space, for instance, for this committee to be making suggestions to government about how we can improve on this? Because there are clearly, companies like BlackRock haven't been actually, I mean, I know it's a US company, but there are equivalents in the UK, haven't been forthcoming, haven't followed the voluntary route. And they do, there certainly, of course, there's the carrot approach, but there's certainly a need for looking at the stick approach, isn't there? It is an emergency, looming emergency.
So I just, I'll probably reiterate some of the points I made earlier on, but I guess one other aspect which the legislation I talked about earlier on envisages is the potential for trustees, when they're looking at their assets, to look at the assumptions in the Paris Agreement, to model the value of those assets relative to those things. And I think that will be enormously helpful from the demand side, as it were, in influencing behaviour and influencing the decision to reach for the things that we are talking about. I mean, those things are yet to happen. So I guess from our perspective, we were really keen to see those things put into place, and we're optimistic that they will represent real change in this space.
Sarah and Sheldon, do you want to add?
So I do think, oh, sorry, Sheldon, do you want to go first?
No, you can go first, Sarah, that's fine.
So Rushanara, I do think that the three things that collectively are going to drive change here are reporting, risk management, and targets. And if we get disclosure from the real economy about their plans, we get the financial sector managing the risks that those plans create, and then stewarding the real economy to meet its target, where its target is net zero. I think those are the component parts that will help the financial economy drive forward the transition that government has legislated for.
Sheldon.
Yeah, I think we have the focus that we have currently on ensuring that stewardship forms a significant part of meeting the net zero challenge and other challenges around climate change and social issues is probably the right one at this point. But the questions that you raise are genuinely a matter of government policy.